So actually we're staying on the transportation theme right now. You know, we talk about public transit and how important it is as a resource, but the reality is for our settlement pattern and the way we live in Vermont, it just doesn't cover a bunch of trips that we make in our communities. And we have a team in Montpelier that's looking to do something about that, that's totally innovative. And you want to talk about partners, right? We just heard from Maeve about partners, from Bruce about partners. Like, this project has some challenging partners. So why don't we, with that, bring Dan Jones up from Sustainable Montpelier to share his story.
What's the switch button here? That one? Okay. Hi, thank you. I've come with a challenge for you. Can we stop pretending that we can avert the climate change destruction simply by adopting electric technologies and switching all our production of energy to renewables? I propose that to make the needed shift, we've got to radically change our assumptions on what services, goods, and experiences will be available to us in the future. It's time to start talking about shared resources rather than private ownership.
Yes.
Let's start with the assumption that everyone must own a car to get to work. Now this is the land use that arises when folks assume that their private car ownership and rural lifestyle takes precedence over a common good. In downtown Montpelier, all those red segments, they're off-street parking lots. Over 60% of our downtown is dedicated to parking. This misuse of downtown land is the hallmark of our small cities, not just in Vermont, but all over the country. Once green Vermonters are now a commuter culture. Perhaps the greenhouse gas demands of those cars could be lowered through mass adoption of EVs, but those EVs will still demand the same parking spots, which means our small cities must pay the cost of the rural sprawl lifestyle. Now the challenge is not just the rural sprawl dwellers. In our little city, we have almost 1,200 residents who commute downtown with their cars each day and demand parking. We need to find some way of getting these folks to work without their cars. For years, we've been told that this can be fixed if all we did was just take the bus. But let's face it, the rural bus system, where available, is slow, inconvenient, and not useful to our needs. To get people around town without their cars in a manner that they will embrace is the holy grail of rural transit planners. But intra-city transit in our small cities, the fixed route, fixed schedule bus just ain't it. In Montpelier, we'd like to do more productive things with our parking-dominated downtown. We'd like to have more efficient housing and commercial space. We need to find ways of getting people into town to work and shop without their cars. But that new form of transit has to be perceived as convenient, it's got to be comfortable, it's affordable, and it's got to replace getting into your personal car. A year ago, to explore this, we organized a city roundtable on transit options for our employers, government, businesses, service providers, and we explored everything from trains, expanded satellite parking, and a new technology called on-demand microtransit. Something clicked, but not the switch. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Soon after this event, a colleague at VTrans informed us that we'd been instructed to create a working group that would explore the possibility of a pilot microtransit project in Montpelier. The Sustainable Montpelier Coalition was named the community partner. That meant we got to do most of the work. First, we had to understand that on-demand microtransit actually is. And basically, it's a service that routes and dispatches shared-use vehicles, now usually vans, to people's homes and work, providing what they call curb-to-curb service. You call the ride when you need it, from a cell phone app, from a computer, or just your plain old telephone. The ride should arrive in 10 or 15 minutes, and you'll probably share the ride with your neighbors. That could even be fun. So while the concept sounds compelling, the actual implementation, especially in our rural context, required some analysis and research. We needed to find places where it was working and what the experience had been. We needed to find out the credibility of various vendors. Perhaps most importantly, we needed to find out if there was actual demand sufficient to drive the transition. Finally, we needed to figure out how to engage future riders. Now for this, I've got to recognize my research director, Laura Byron, and our public engagement director, Elizabeth Parker, over there. Their work provided comprehensive analysis and plans to the working group. For instance, we found that successful models of implementation around the country depended on comprehensive public engagement and education. We found that while there are a number of vendors who hope to get into the business, there was only one with the experience and credibility that could actually make it operational from day one. So VTrans was delighted with our work, used it to determine future vendor relations, budgeting for its agency requests of the legislature, and they promised support for a community engagement effort. Now it's our hope that the service will be up and running this coming summer. Next year, we should be able to give you a fuller report on what's working and not. By late spring, you can even check in at our website at sustainablemontpelier.org and see what's happening. We look at this effort as the first step in actually changing our relationship with the car for the future of all of our well-beings. We need to start imagining a future in which our access to convenient transportation is not dependent on just our ownership of a car. Thank you very much.